Sissies on YouTube. This video is dedicated to the tough guys, the keyboard tough guys on YouTube that wouldn't know what a day's work was or a man's day's work was if it hit you in the butt on the way out the door. Watch what a man does for a living in my little video slideshow that I put together for you sissies on YouTube that think you're tough guys. Watch this, folks. This is what a man does for a living. We're going to start off with something simple like deck building. This was my first deck and dock building company in New York City, in which I designed and built everything that you see in the pictures from scratch with no help or assistance from any architect or designer. Everything came out of my understanding of building technologies. This is a job on 95th Street in Howard Beach, Queens, where I designed and built a $185,000 deck and dock system. Now, you're going to also see a crane and barge in the picture, because one of the cranes that you might see if we get up to it is a 25-ton land crane that sits next to this house, because a man did not show up with a crane that I needed to put pilings in for that particular house. When I was 27 years old, that afternoon that he didn't show up with the crane, I went out and purchased a 25-ton crane and built a pile driving unit and put the pilings in for that job that you saw in the beginning with the jacuzzi deck. A few months later, a man didn't show up with a crane on a barge. I found a barge in Traverse City, Michigan at the end of the coal dock. This was a house I raised on Boardwalk in Howard Beach, Queens. A few months later, I needed a crane with a barge on it, and the man didn't show up with a crane and barge. The crane and barge that you see going in the Hudson River with the yellow crane, 6-ton Bantam crane, is the crane and barge I went to Traverse City, Michigan to look at and purchased that day, and then it was a self-propelled barge, and then brought the barge back from Traverse City, Michigan, 1,700 miles through 3 different lakes, the Detroit Straits, and then the Erie Barge Canal by myself. That was the new crane I put on the barge, which is a 35-ton Loran. By myself, I brought a 30 by 50-foot barge through the Erie Barge Canal. It took 3 months and 2 days. So you sissies on YouTube that say I need to get a job, I had a job. And I can still do this type of work. This is how men work. Men that are willing to put their hand under a 10,000-pound weight or next to a 60-foot long pole that weighs 3,500 to 5,000 pounds and then trust me at the controls of a crane with a 60-foot stick on it so that they're going to go home with their hands at the end of the day. That's what men are made out of, ladies and gentlemen, not you sissies pushing buttons. This is me bringing the barge from Michigan under the Verrazano Bridge past the Statue of Liberty on August 2nd of 1988. That's the World Trade Center in the background. That's the City Line tourists. This is a boat that I salvaged from behind that same job on 95th Street. Anybody that knows Howard Beach would know the house. This is the house from the back view. This was a 38-foot boat that had sunk behind the gentleman's house in September of 1990, I think it was. This is myself running the crane with that boat slung up like that, and now you'll see me on top of the crane. That's right. This is what men do for a living. Not that sissy stuff with you pushing buttons and calling people names on YouTube. This guy could outwork any 5 of you sissies on YouTube simply because he had what it took to put his hands under a 10,000-pound weight all day long while I operated the crane, you guys would go home crying to your mothers because you're all such tough guys on YouTube. Get a job, you tell me. Go out and work for a living, you tell me. And what do? You make some lousy video for 20 seconds and you think that you're some kind of intellect. This is a roof that I raised from scratch. I cut the roof and raised the roof. This is the barge. Here's the barge. 30-foot by 50-foot self-propelled barge. That's the dog, Z2, that came with me on the barge during the course of the day, not to Michigan. That's the North Channel Bridge, the new North Channel Bridge in Queens, New York, and some children playing on the beach. That job I actually worked on as a dock builder. That's the train station, the train that goes to Rockaway Beach, Queens. So moving back to you sissies on YouTube, you get me sick inside when you tell me to go get a job. You wouldn't know what a job was if it hit you in the butt when you were walking through the door. Because you're a bunch of sissies. Not everybody, but 99% of the people that you meet on YouTube, you might as well have been the female of the species when you were born. This is the crane that I bought when I was 27 years old because a man didn't show up with a crane. I went out and bought that crane the same day. That crane, the same day. He didn't show up. I went out and bought one. You sissies on YouTube. Oh my God, I'd like to meet you guys that tell me to go out and get. I'd like to meet you. That's me flying into Bonaire. Yeah, I do that too. And I'd like to meet you one day and put you on top of a 60-foot piece of steel with a 20-mile-an-hour crosswind. That's the hardest working man in the known universe. That man is the hardest working man in the known universe. No one ever could work harder than him. And that guy is just a good-natured soul, that guy there. I don't like to mention anybody's name, but he's a good-natured guy. Always had a smile on his face. This was the Howard Beach Canal, Hawtree Creek Basin. That's my cousin Stephen, New Year's Eve, probably in the late 80s. And that guy in the back, you would know him as Patty. And we'll leave it at that. That's Stephen's dog, Pookie. That's my dog, Z2. Z is in zebra, 2. And that's Pookie playing on the stoop. So these are the things that I did and that I don't have to prove it to you because here's the pictures. But I can still do it, and I'll take any 25-year-old guy on a computer and bring you to the job with me that I can still do this stuff, and you'll be crying at the end of the day if you make it to the end of the day because the work is so dangerous you wouldn't know what to do. In all likelihood, you would kill yourself by doing something improperly, and you would probably bring doom upon yourself because you're not intelligent enough to do a man's work, a real man's work. When I say work, not that sissy stuff that you guys do on computers pushing buttons. Are you starting to get the gist of it yet, ladies and gentlemen? You people, that's a shrub oak in Temecula, California. It's the oldest shrub oak on the planet. It's also the largest shrub oak on the planet. It's approximately, I believe, 2,000 years old. And that's where I used to fly in and out of when I flew in and out of California with the man who owned the property. This is the Hoover Dam, and we took a ride to the Hoover Dam in that old van that I had for approximately 14 years. I paid $200 for that van, cash money, and I had it for 14 years. That's not too far from 29 Palms. The Hoover Dam, when I was skinny. When I was skinny. There's the Hoover Dam at sunrise, actually. That's just after the sun came up. So you can see by the pictures that when you tough guys, now I made this video for all you tough guys on YouTube that you want to be tough guys. You want to get a job. Get a job. You don't have a job. I wish you could come to work with me. Just come to work with me. I guarantee you. Not all of you, because there's a lot of dock builders and construction workers on YouTube, but they know what I'm talking about. You guys, you tough guys, you push a button on YouTube, you have a tough day at the keyboard, they run out of cups at the water cooler, a woman gets upset with you, and your boss gets upset because the woman's upset and he doesn't want to hear, and you go home crying to your wife because some woman got upset with you and you can't do anything about it. Kenny Stein in Arizona. Right after this, I think I met Sylvester Stallone. I don't know if you're going to get to that part by the end of the video. Well, I met him for a couple of times anyway. But anyway, you guys on YouTube, you get me sick. I think I mentioned that to you. There's Stallone. And the next picture he'll be pointing at me because he knew me from Queens. He's the next one, I think, after that. He had a bakery. His cousin had a bakery on 123rd. Stallone's Bakery. And at that point, ladies and gentlemen, it's time for me to get a bigger camera!